Hello everybody, my name is CulBlu and I'm bringing y'all this video of me talking about a board game. This will be the spoiler-free review post, or not review, spoiler-free post-campaign playthrough round 2 reflection. There you go. That's the title. That is the title, the working title. I'll keep workshopping it. That might not be the final title, but at any rate, this is just me after I just got done finishing my second full playthrough of Sleeping Gods campaign. Mostly solo. I say mostly solo because I think there was 4 or 2. No, two videos that are 2 games, 2 hours of it at least that I did with a friend in a 2-player mode, which is pretty fun, pretty enjoyable. I wouldn't mind trying this with a more consistent group or maybe having that thing. But anyway, at any rate, I was going to talk about my feelings afterwards. So this is a spoiler-free version. I'm not going to talk about anything specific to my campaign playthrough. I have everything kind of packed up and put away. I'm not going to show any cards or flip up anything and say, oh, I hate this one thing that happened. I'll just kind of generically talk about the game, especially for those who want to feel for how does the campaign play. I will say that my second time around was significantly more seasoned. It was obviously significantly more seasoned. I knew what I was doing. I kind of figured out some stuff. There were still some rules that I had a little bit incorrect. And this goes into, I guess, one of my critiques with this game, which is that some of the rules they're not ambiguous, it's just that they're not clear, or at least they weren't clear to me. And this is me speaking as somebody who learned to play the game mostly through watching a YouTube video or 2, and then trying to jump in immediately, trying to do the rolling start that the rulebook gives you with its introductory scenario, or with its introduction, the first part of the scenario where you always start. And I will say that I did miss some rules, even in my second playthrough. I finally figured out how damage works. so great time to figure that out, considering all the fights that I've been in across my 2 campaigns. But yes, like a very simple thing, a very small thing that may not seem like a big deal, but just when your enemy is doing retaliation damage after your crew is done, their initial target takes all the damage. So if they're dealing 6 damage, for instance, then they will deal 6 damage to one person, and then if that person falls, then you can spread it out to whoever you want. The way I was playing before was that if the enemy is doing 8 damage to us, then I spread out 8 amongst our people, which is, from my current understanding of the rulebook, which it may be wrong. If it's wrong, please correct me. My current understanding of the rulebook is incorrect. It should be one person takes the hit, and then any residual damage, any remaining damage, will be dispersed. So for instance, if somebody had 1 health left, and they took an attack from an enemy for 6, as far as, at the end of your 4 activations for attacking, then there's going to be 5 damage that you get to spread out however you want to everybody else. So, the person who is taking the hit takes the 1, and then the other gets spread out. So that's my current understanding. If it's not correct, then I'll correct it again in the future. But all I'm saying is that that's a little bit ambiguous in the rulebook from what I was reading. And it might say it somewhere more specifically, but I don't really know. Okay, right. Also, sorry, I forgot we have music. Cue the music. Sorry, forgot about the music. I just want to jump straight in. Try to keep it straightforward. So overall, did I enjoy my experience as far as this game goes? Yes, I enjoyed it a lot. I got 16 hours out of my first playthrough, probably more than that. I got about 16 hours out of my second playthrough, and that's while live streaming. So you could probably consider, if you're speeding through a game and you're just trying to dedicate all your time to it, you can probably knock out a game in 2 days. By that I mean like over the weekend, or if you just want to run a straight, maybe 14 hours of playing the game, you can go for it. That seems excessive to me, but it also is a game that kind of sucks you in sometimes, so that is enjoyable. Knowing what I knew in the first campaign playthrough helped out a ton. As in, yes, I did have some prior knowledge about some locations and what they did, what places to avoid, what places to go to. That is a true thing that kind of stops me from being surprised at things. That said, there's a lot of stuff in this game. As in, there was one area that I was in and I explored everything, and then I went to the next area, and there was just as many things to explore in that area as there was the first area. And I spent nearly the first third of my game in that first area. So when I say that this game is massive, I mean that this game is massive as far as the possibilities of things you can interact with. I mean, this book, for those who are still kind of on the fence, like, this book is massive. This is a choose your own adventure game. And if you want to see the print, and I did this in the last spoiler-free review, and I'll do it here as well. This is not spoiling anything. This is taking the Tides book. Actually, is it Tides book? Yeah, taking the Tides book just to show you some information from the Tides book. Hopefully you can read that. I'll zoom in a little bit. But I just want you guys to get an idea of how the size of the text. And this is just for people who are kind of on the fence and wondering how much longevity is in this game. This is the size of the text. And this text is about the same, or is exactly the same as this book here, which has all your story stuff. There's also story stuff somewhere in the back of, or in the next few pages of this, which we're not going to go over. I'm just trying to give you all an idea of just how small the text is. And usually when you have like a camp, or when you have like a story thing happening, it'll be like in a small little text block, like, you know, if you make this decision, then go do this, and if you make that decision, then go to like paragraph 7 of this section, and then you read paragraph 7, and then paragraph 7 says make these decisions, and if you choose A, then do this, go to this page. If you do B, go to that page. There's a whole book of this stuff that I'm just trying to emphasize that, like, there's so much stuff in this game that I'm kind of shocked that I was shocked. Like, I'm not surprised, but I'm also surprised about how much stuff there is. To the point to where I could have very well, in my second playthrough, avoided all the locations that I've been to in the previous playthrough and still found brand new stuff, and still probably done just as well. But I'm still baffled at just how much stuff there is to do in this game. Now, granted, it is still very story-based, and some of those things are dead ends, as in some locations you can go to, they're just like a thing happens, and every time you go there, that same thing happens, so it's not like it's evolving and it changes. But then some locations, the first time you go to it, thing number 1 happens, and the second time you go to it, thing number 4 happens instead. And it's a nice little kind of shows like the illusion of a growing world. It's kind of like when you play an RPG or a video game like that, and you talk to a villager for the first time. They give you a mission, you go do the mission, and then you come back and talk to the villager afterwards. They give you a reward, and then anytime you talk to them afterwards, they'll always just kind of say that one or two phrases that they say. So you do have a little bit of that in this game, but to be honest, the timer of the game does help make sure that that's not too much of an issue. Because yes, I can spend a whole third of the game, because the game is basically played. There's three acts basically in this game, but I can play a whole third of this game if I wanted to, just by exploiting one specific location. That every time I go to it, it gives me a thing for free. I can do that, but every single time I do that, the timer's ticking. Every single time I go to that place again, the timer's ticking. And in this game, you have 3 rounds of 18 cards, 18 event cards, basically. So technically 19 cards, because you play the last one too. And which once again is not a spoiler, it's just letting you know what the scale of the game is. And that means that you end up with 52, I think, is what the math comes out to. 52 rounds that you play in this game. And it takes about 16 hours to play 52 rounds. At least at the rate that I've been playing. I mean, you all have seen the videos, and yes, I do go through a lot more, I have a lot more AP than some other board gamers might have, so that is a thing to take into account, and I am playing solo, so I have to control everything, I have to control all the mechanics myself. But that said, 16 hours to do 52 rounds, I mean, that sounds like an incredible value to me overall, so I'm still blown away by how much stuff is in this game, which is, once again, for the spoiler-free version of this discussion, I'm just going to spend a lot of time just talking about the mechanics and how they interact, and how I've adjusted to them. And even with prior knowledge, like, it's still shocking that, like, yeah, the prior knowledge was helpful and useful, and like I knew kind of what abilities I wanted to go for the characters. I knew how I wanted to build my team up, and I knew how aggressively I wanted to give them their abilities. But also on the same token, I was still like being bombarded with new things that I never considered for my second playthrough, and it's like, wow, that's phenomenal. So I do appreciate that a lot. I could spend a whole hour talking about just how cool that particular aspect of it is. But the core question that probably a lot of you want to know is, like, would I play a 3rd or 4th or 5th campaign? How long does this last? Like, how much longevity can I get out of this? And I foresee that I can get a lot of longevity, much the same as you can get out of a D&D campaign. Even if you use modules for your D&D campaign, you can still play the same thing, get a different feel, do it in a different order, have just as much fun, and maybe even share the experience with your friends or family. And they can try to jump in too, or maybe just do a random campaign, like do a one-shot version of it, where you play the quick version with air quotes of this game, which is essentially you go through 18 rounds and then you fight a thing and then the game's over, which is kind of silly, but okay. I think that's the arcade mode, but don't quote me on that. I might be understanding that incorrectly. It's just I literally just glazed at the rules one time to see what it was like. But that said, yeah, it was a lot of fun. My second campaign, I did significantly better my second playthrough than I did my first playthrough, for sure. And I will say that knowing how the locations kind of interact with each other is very useful, like being familiar with how the system interacts. So knowing that I really need to explore everything in one spot, instead of just going from one spot, looking at one random thing, and then going to a random spot, looking at another random thing. until the quests give you like specific locations, like, you know, go to this place or go to this location at this place. It's really beneficial. This is a hint for everybody who's new to this game, to literally just explore everything in that area. Maybe not everything, because some of the everythings are not good everythings. Some of the everythings there are bad everythings, which you'll learn eventually. But yeah, just kind of taking your time, learn the initial area, especially the first location. It's a little bit mundane. It will be pretty boring by the time you play it for a third or fourth time for sure. But spending a little bit more time, like actually trying to finish the first level quest, goes a long way, because it really gives you like a good starting point to actually play the game. And that was the thing I was sorely missing from my first game. So if you don't know, from my first playthrough, I did a thing that was kind of silly, and then I basically never caught up. I never recovered from that. My second playthrough, I was a lot more slower, a lot more methodical, and even in the videos as I was recording them, like I think around episode 7 or 6 of my 13 video playthrough of season or of campaign 2, I even mentioned, I was like, you know what, I spent a lot of time in this first area, and I'm at like 6 or 7 hours in, and I feel like I'm significantly further along. And I was. I just was. If you want to know my final score, which I won't tell you exactly the details of it, but my final score of my campaign playthrough, it was 3 times higher, no, nearly 4 times higher than my first playthrough. Actually, no, it was 4 times higher than my first playthrough. So that's just giving you a scale of how much better I did my second playthrough, which means that I enjoyed it more, yeah, and I did more, yeah, and I got more quests done, and my quests were questing, as I say. But yeah, that's kind of the whole extent of that. So the game has longevity. I do think it's a good purchase. It is a little bit steep on the price still. I still stand by my original statement that if you could find this game for $75, buy it immediately. If you could find it for around the $80, $85 where it retails, then it's a fair investment. And then like 100, you're kind of pushing it on the value, because it's like, it's still expensive. I'm glad I have it, but spending $100 for this board game, it's like, I don't know, it doesn't feel good. It never feels good to spend money on things, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. But I do appreciate the game, and I am excited for Sleeping Gods Distant Skies. I will be doing a full playthrough of that one eventually, once it comes out, once I get it, so to be on the lookout for that. But for right now, I'm gonna wrap up this video by just saying that I did thoroughly enjoy myself. I am considering doing a third campaign playthrough, but I may not actually record that one from YouTube. So I might just play it in private, or maybe a weekend where I go spend with my family. I'll play with them, see how they like the game, see how they experience the game, and see what the world looks like for them as they explore the world that I'm familiar with. So yeah, lots of cool stuff. The whole concept of tediousness with managing your team, I do want to manage that. It does kind of fade into the background once you get used to it. It's an inconvenient existence. It's an inconvenient truth, I guess, of the game. That is extremely tedious to worry about your team. It's extremely tedious to worry about your ship. It's extremely tedious to do a whole bunch of things in this game. And I do kind of wish that it would take more of a back seat than it does in this system. But I also understand why it's there, because if you didn't have that there, you just kind of burn through the story. The fact that you have to travel from one location to another, I mean, it's one can see it as padding. One can very easily see it as padding for the game. But on the same token, you know, there are more game mechanics, and this game does have the benefit, I should say, does have the benefit of actually having game mechanics. And the game mechanic for this comes from, you have to manage your crew, you having to manage your food resources, you having to like kind of find money, go to a store and purchase it, travel to this location, pick up and deliver type stuff. So those are the game mechanics. I think it is. It's almost like if you want to choose your own adventure style game, you could also purchase this and just literally just read the book and just follow your own choose your own adventure. Look at the map books inside of here and just kind of follow along, choose your path, and maybe roll a die to figure out how much time it takes you to go to place, and then do your own 52 round timer type thing. I don't know. I appreciate it for what it is. I do think it is very clunky, and I do think it could be more mechanically streamlined, and that would be nice. Like, for instance, giving me like a pool of hit points to use. The moment that I started seeing it like that, the easier it was for me to actually approach this game. But looking at it as individual characters, like, okay, Raphael has 7 health, Audrey has 5 health, Gregory has 6 health, Catherine Odessa has 5 health, and it's like, oh my gosh, everybody has health, and this person's hurt, this person's sick, that person's gone insane, there's all this other stuff going on. It's like, this is such a tedious puzzle. And yeah, it is. That's the fun part. It's a puzzle. It's like I'm playing a choose your own adventure book and Bejeweled at the same time. And I guess it works for me. I don't know. If it doesn't work for you, it does work for you. Anyway, all right, that's enough of me ranting about that. I do want to try to keep this video under 20 minutes, so we'll go ahead and just end our thoughts there. Final conclusion, did enjoy myself. Hopefully you all enjoyed the experience of it all. I am going to go ahead and do a spoiler-filled version next after this. So yeah, thank you all very much for watching. Hope you all enjoyed it, and as always, I will see y'all whenever.